Oh. Nigerian government support for industry.
Okay. Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Okay, we have to kick off. We're waiting for one or two panelists, but we have to start because we'll finish in less than an hour. Okay. Onke Dumeko here, Head of Operations for National Film and Video Foundation in South Africa, will be moderating this session. Thank you, Onke. Okay. But before we start, very quickly, before we call up our panelists that are here, I also like to recognize the presence of Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who's the immediate past Federal Minister for Arts, Information, Arts, Culture, and Tourism in Nigeria. Thank you, sir. You're welcome. I also like to recognize the presence of Mr. Paul Higginson, Senior Executive Vice President, Universal Studios, covering EMEA, and oversees a lot of what happens theatrically with Universal in Nigeria. And he played that role as well back in the day for 20th Century Fox. Thanks, Paul, for coming. I'd like to also recognize the presence of, I'll let Onke recognize and bring up the panelists on stage, but for those that are not coming on stage, they are the ones I'm recognizing. Okay, so Adebukola Abaminoja, who's the head of the Lagos State Film and Video Censors Board. You're welcome. Okay. Okay, so Onke, over to you.
Sure.
To introduce our panelists and bring them up on stage.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Good morning, afternoon-ish, everybody. I hope that many of you who have come to the 77th Cannes International Film Festival have enjoyed it so far, especially these types of conversations that focus on the youngest continent in the world, which is Africa, right? So the continent that's really geared for growth in this industry. So it is my absolute honor and pleasure to moderate today. My name is Onke Dumeko. I am the Head of Operations at the National Film and Video Foundation in South Africa, an organization that funds films and documentaries and animation projects in South Africa. Firstly, I would like to bring on stage Ms. Adetoke Benson Awoyinka, who is a legal practitioner and the Honorable Commissioner for Tourism, Arts and Culture. Thank you. Thank you. I'd then like to bring on stage Mr. Fego Umunobo, who is the Special Assistant to the President on Digital and the Creative Economy. Then I would like to bring on stage Mr. Abba Agba, who is the Special Assistant to the President on Creativity and the Special Advisor to the Minister on Film, Music and Entertainment. You can sit here, and I think if Fego can come a bit closer, if you can come a bit closer, yeah. Let's make it a bit more intimate, and if the team can just help us release the other two seats, yeah, because this will be our panel today. So, there is, of the many African proverbs that exist, a Nigerian one is, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So I think in the context of film, we've seen how that's a reality in many industries, such as your industries in New Zealand and South Korea, where film and the private sector have actively worked together to build the film industries. So for all of you who are interrelated with the Nigerian government, what would you think? I mean, I'm going to pose this to anybody who would like to kick us off. What would you think is the key priority that government needs to focus on when supporting a film industry?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. The first priority, which is the major priority, is infrastructure. And infrastructure is what needs to be focused on right now. It's going to take a lot of financing for the infrastructure to be put in place, and that is what will reduce and bring filmmakers from around the world to come to the African continent. I know the South of Africa has gained quite a lot in that field, but I can say that in our country, Nigeria, we're yet to get to that stage where would be the first destination choice for filming. So the very first thing we should be doing in Nigeria is putting in an infrastructure that filmmakers would bring filmmakers from all over the world to say, we want to shoot that film there, and that's where the location should be. And I'm going to say that our government, which is the government of Lagos State, we're very particular about that. We recently launched the campaign and the funding for a $100 million film city in Lagos. And we're looking for prospective investors, and that's going to be from outside the continent, outside Lagos State itself, both public and private. That's the only way we can do it. So we, like you said, everybody together, we can get it done. Individually, we cannot get it done. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I think then, Baba, in the point that she was making on infrastructure, and especially the work that you've done as a special advisor to the minister on film music and also particularly entertainment, what would you say have been some of the developments made in infrastructure, if anything?
Thank you. Personally, I'd like to even expand it wider because, I mean, your question is what do we think should be done? I think maybe I'll let Figo go first, but because I'm at the seat where it's actually being done, so I think I could speak probably better to what is being done and how that fits into what everyone is saying. But I mean, I wouldn't personally start at infrastructure because our work as well that we're already doing is starting sort of foundational, which is looking at, first of all, the policies that affect the industry. So what's the film policy? What's your incentives policy? What's your policy around the movement of creatives? What's the policy around how government views the creative economy? Then looking at the governance structure, which is legislative, regulatory, and saying how does that create a dynamic ecosystem that's productive, that works for anyone. And like the commissioner said, you want to be the destination of choice.
Yeah.
But, all these things then feed into enabling an investment in infrastructure or capacity building and in production that would happen. So if you don't have sort of the right mix of policies, incentives, sort of the government approach and the industry approach for the ecosystem, you could build, all the film cities, you could build all the film schools, but nobody will come. And you basically have ghost towns. So sort of, that's why I said I'd like to go a bit more expansively after he speaks.
And that's absolutely fine, because I was coming to that point, because I know in the past 10 years, there's been quite a lot of good groundwork that the government has done in terms of really, really supporting the industry from an industry that was really kind of, private sector driven. So I would just like to ask then, so if you could just expand on Fego. Sorry, I'm battling to see your face. You could just turn your chair slightly. Yeah. Apologies, we just had a last minute shift. So if you could just then, because Baba raises a really interesting point on the policy intervention, right? And as special advisor to the president on the creative economy. What are some of the key kind of policy interventions that you think have helped really, enable the government to support the industry?
Okay, so for me, I know Bob had mentioned some of the policies. So apart from infrastructure, I know one of the things that the ministry is doing is working on policies. So one of the questions I get a lot is, if you come to Nigeria to produce film, are there structures like rebates and all of those stuff? So those are key stuff that I know that the ministry is currently working on. In terms of infrastructure, from the presidency. So there's a program called the IDAS program, and it's a $617 million investment, which is driven from the Office of the Vice President, and my portfolio cannot cover because I'm part of the technical committee. Part of what we want to achieve with that is, so there's a 3-pillar we're running with. So there's capacity development, there's infrastructure, then there's access to finance. The second pillar covers infrastructure. So infrastructure like you want to have enough cinema in areas that you don't have enough cinema. So if a business person comes up and says that I have a plan to build a cinema in states where these things are not available, then they can access those funding from IDA because it's a huge fund. And I know one of the challenge with a lot of businesses in Nigeria, you're looking for patient investors, which is something that we don't have before. So those are some of the problems that IDICE will solve. Now, if I come down, let me narrow it down to what we've done thus far, because from my office, which is that of the presidency, is more of intervention. The ministry is more of policies and all of that. So one of the things that we've done, which has kind of helped with access to finance, one of the first things we did was to have a roundtable, which was done last year, and we got a lot of feedbacks from the stakeholders, and one of the challenges we got was access to finance. So I want to produce a film, I don't have fund. And we're able to get a bank to be able to partner with us. So what we did was we got a 5 billion fund for film from Providence Bank. And what we did was to structure it in a way that you don't need collateral to access this fund, because it's a challenge. You can't ask the creative to bring collateral because their collateral has to be the intellectual property. And I'm glad that we're able to achieve that. We're done with the first batch. 1.5 billion was given to 4 filmmakers, and it's a class structure. So what we did was you get the film, produce your movie, sell to any of the streaming platform, return the investment back to the bank. Then there's a sharing formula, 70-30. I'm hoping that we can replicate the same system with other banks, because I know with the financial institutions in Nigeria, they're a bit scared because they don't understand this industry, they don't understand creative. For them, it's about, I put my money, I get my money out. And if you want to have quality films, you need probably like 1 to 2 or probably 3 years to produce quality films. So you need these financial institutions to understand this. So we're also in talks with Wema Bank, and I'm hoping that I can bring more banks into this whole structure so that I can have more finance for film producers. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we're going to open up for the second batch. Then more people can access finance and produce their film. Then we can have more quality films and all that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think you touched on a very important point on the long-term investment in film. I think that a lot of the industries that have, where you can see a good interplay between government and private sector, there's always been that time, right, that's been allocated. So there's been the investment, but then also the time that has been allocated to see that investment come to fruition. And I think then it definitely gives an impression that from a government perspective, that the headspace is correct, right? And I think that, you know, from the outside looking in, and as someone who also works at a government institution, so is prone to defend the government, my next question would then be what some of the challenges have been, or perhaps why there hasn't been, I would say, enough of awareness around what the government has done. Because I think quite a number of Nigerian filmmakers, you know, would focus on the fact that they fund their films independently, not really focusing enough on what the government has done, particularly in the last decade. Do any of you want to touch on why some of that communication, awareness of government interventions hasn't been as strong as it should be?
Well, it looks like you're talking to 2 countries here. There's the country Nigeria, and there's a country Lagos. So they're speaking of policies which they are just starting to do. We've gone way past that. We're at the infrastructural stage. They're talking about grants. We've started giving grants way back. This administration of my governor gave a grant of over $1 billion to filmmakers and creatives in the year 2020-21, when we were in the height of COVID and nobody had access to anything. So we've taken it upon ourselves as a government, because most of these filmmakers are actually residual in Lagos. and most of these things take place in Lagos. I met my brother Kene, who is taking it from Lagos now to Unewi, which is in the east, but before then, he was in Lagos. So we've always been in that habit of giving grants. A lot of the industry practitioners know that Lagos has always stood in the gap. And we're way beyond the policies. That's why we have our Film and Video Censor Board, also a strong part of government administration. There is nothing that happens, well, I wouldn't want to say in Nigeria, that does not go through Lagos. So they're the big brother, we're the younger ones, but we've been quite, I can say we've been very, very good with the interventions that we have done, especially in the creative industry. Film, that's why we're at the infrastructure level. My governor would say we've done the soft part of film, which is in grants.
The soft funding.
Yes, funding for individuals. Sometimes they come together in groups. We've sponsored quite a lot of industry practitioners. We're at the stage where we want them to say, okay, now we're leaving the soft part, we want to go to the hard part. And that's why we launched that Film City project. So that's where we are right now. I think we're way beyond where they are. They're a new ministry, and you can't blame them for that. They're a new ministry. They used to be under a body before, but now they're standalone, so they can focus more on some of the things that we had done in the past. That's why I'm saying we're speaking to two countries here, so I'm not taking away from them and just adding to what they should be doing. So I think when it comes to that, what we in Lagos are focused on right now is how we get that infrastructure in place.
Okay.
Get the studios
How you
in.
convert it.
Yes, get the studios in place, get people to come to Lagos, and get those films done in Lagos. It's going to help our ecosystem. It's going to help our local communities. It's going to help the businesses. We spoke to the mayor of Atlanta, and he told of the story of how when Tyler Perry came to Atlanta and he wanted to build a film city there, he said his idea then was 300 million, and from there it grew to $9 billion. So that's the place where we are at right now, to educate and help the entire value chain, and not just focus on how we're going to get grants from or loans. We give grants. We're not doing loans because we know that the films are not as profitable or are not yet profitable as they should be. So we are standing in the gap as Big Brother. So my colleagues here, I think there's so much more you can learn from us.
So you're standing in the gap, you mean as you were saying your little brother, their big brother.
They're big
Who
brothers,
wants to
yes.
defend
We
Big
agree that
Brother?
So I would
They're big brothers.
well, okay. I'll start off by saying this. Like I said, I'd rather look forward than look back. But you're right. Historically, the Nigerian government has done quite a bit in terms of, let me use that word, intervening in the sort of the film industry. And, it's left for us to debate if they've done enough, they've not done enough, should they have done something differently. But I think the mix of not just the Nigerian governments, even the subnational governments, what everyone has done, more specifically looking at film historically over the past administrations, going back the last 20 years, it comes down to what we're looking at now and saying, okay, how do you actually create a sustainable, viable ecosystem? Because it's fine to intervene and stand in the gap, but you're not building an industry. And at the end of the day, you have to go back to the foundation. What gives you an industry? What makes an industry? How are you going to guarantee that you don't have to keep intervening every single time? So the commissioner mentioned that the films aren't profitable. That's a big question. Why aren't the films profitable? How can we make them profitable? So rather than us sort of solving the side effects of a problem, why don't we deal with the actual issue? Yes, we could give grants and all these things, and yeah, they're part of the ecosystem, but how do we actually fundamentally make the market work? How do we make it possible to monetize films in Nigeria, in Africa, and not just depend on being just fully export-based? Yeah, the export is good, but we need to make money there. So as far as what we are doing now, again, going back to it, and you look at this as the foundation of every serious film country, every serious film industry, you have to have the right incentives, the right policies. You have to have the ease of doing business that enables people to come in, and you have to have the capacity in terms of human capital that's going to be able to work on these projects. And you see Saudi is doing it right now. The UK has just doubled down on its investments with the rebates and the credits. With all due respect, Lagos can build this film studio, but if Nigeria, and that is if the federal government does not bring a film credit system, a rebate system, nobody will come to the film studio, because the first thing they're going to do is open up the map. Oh, Africa, what are the incentives? Oh, South Africa's got incentives, Morocco's got incentives, Mauritius has got incentives. It's like 20 to 30%. Oh, Saudi's doing 40%. And then you're like, come to Nigeria, come to Lagos, come to Calabar, whatever. And they're like, why? And you're like, oh, you can shoot there. And like, yeah, I can shoot anywhere else. Oh, well, we've got a great studio. And they're like, they've got great studios. What are you offering? We've got great crews. Yeah, they've got great crews too.
What do we get back? Yeah.
Exactly. And, it's, talking with the British government, for example, they always said this thing that the way they look at it is an investment. That every pound they invest with the film credits, they basically attract £4 back as an investment into their country. So for them, it's a smart way of, rather than saying we're giving out grants all the time, or we're just going to share money for filmmakers to make films, how do we catalyze the filmmakers to go and make films, incentivize them to make those films, and for people to finance those films, because we're sort of, in a way, co-investing with them, but in a sustainable way for government that guarantees that the productions actually happen.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a producer, I'm a cinematographer, done it for donkey years. And, the harsh reality of a lot of filmmakers in Nigeria and on the continent is that, you make your films and it sits on your hard drive, or you're just showing family and friends and you can't really have access to the market. So for us, everything we're doing is market-driven, market-based. Yes, we're going to have the developmental and the support side, but we must create a viable market in the country where, Lagos is going to do its things. Some other states might have a smaller chunk of the industry, but it has to function with market dynamics, and that's what's really going to attract the international finance that we need. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I think what you touched on with the rebate and the investment into the country, there's a conversation there about tourism. But I would just like to introduce two other panel members that we have. I know one is joining us, that have just joined us via live streaming. And another young woman has just joined us on the panel. But Ms. Ali Nuhu, I hope I am pronouncing that correctly, the Managing Director of the Nigerian Film Corporation.
That's not him.
Oh,
That's not him.
Apologies. If you could just introduce yourself, who's joining us virtually, and I'll also give the opportunity to the young lady who's just joined us on stage. Apologies. Audio. Sorry, she's joining us via Zoom, being told she's from the African Union. I cannot hear. Can we just get some audio?
Hey, good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, now I'm audible. My name is Vicencia, and I'm a senior culture officer from African Union Commission, and also an institution which have launched the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission, which is temporarily hosted in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. Could you please introduce yourself as well?
Hello, my name is Melise Mehab. I am a communication partner for Del York Group. We are building a film studio, a film city in Lagos in partnership with Lagos State Government and Storyland Studios. So very excited to be here and as well as to join the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So with the recent launch of the Double C, could you just from the AU perspective give us an indication of how important that commission is in the context of government support for industries across the continent?
Thank you so much. The institution African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission is the filmmakers' struggle for over 20 years to have a system which can support their film production in the continent. And the other panel members have discussed about the policies, the need to have good policies, laws, regulations, but also having infrastructure and access to finances and marketing. So the aim of the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission is to harness all these initiatives so that they can be able at least to come up with an initiative which will benefit filmmakers across the continent. Take into consideration that we have Africa free trade, that most of the filmmakers, as other industries, have an opportunity to benefit from that. But also we have regional economic commissions and like the ECOWAS, like the East African Community, the SADC, etc. These are also platforms for the filmmaker to explore on how to navigate across the continent, to extend the markets, and also boost the co-production and co-financing of the productions, of the film production in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the facilitation of co-productions, what would any of you say have been quite a challenge there? I mean, I know with South Africa, we've been working on an agreement with Nigeria for quite some years, but because that also speaks to investment.
Yeah, so co-productions, as you rightly know, with the sort of system that the world practices, it helps and enables. So obviously that conversation with South Africa has sort of been restarted. We're actively negotiating right now with a few countries, co-production treaties, and we've exchanged drafts. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be able to sign at least 3 or 4 of those. It's what's going to give the Nigerian filmmakers access to the incentives and the opportunities in those countries, and it's going to help us bring them back. So I think it's very foundational, actually. So again, it goes back to what we're talking about, policies and the likes that would help attract and bring certain kinds of films and projects to the country. So yeah, I'm sure you'll be hearing about, anyway, we already spoke slightly before, but we have some negotiations to do after
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that one is done. I had a conversation with Bobby, your ambassador, Bobby Moore, before coming, and spoken to a few of the ambassadors as well. And there's a lot of interesting stuff coming. So, I mean, Brazil sent us something. There's a draft being reviewed. Jamaica's interested. Ghana's interested as well. Amazing. Conversation with the French. You guys naturally. So, okay. I think we're well on our way.
Okay, that's good. And I think also with co-pros, then we can bring back in the conversation around studios. And Malik, you had referenced a studio that is part of your line of work. Are there any kind of international studio formats that you have looked at to inform the decision around the one that you are working with?
So in regards to Cubulania, the format of Cubulania is supposed to be a university, a theme park, as well as a retail resort. And so when we look at the Disney Worlds in Paris, and because not only are we looking at things that are Universal Studios and Hollywood as well, but also experiences. We want to make sure that this is a totally African experience, and that also people within Africa, they can also come to Lagos and be on the continent and enjoy the experience, as well as we want outside of Africa as well. So different foreigners. And so when we're looking at investments, we want to make sure that people that are aligned, that have value. When you come to this studio, it's particularly for creatives. It's a home for all creatives all over Africa, outside Africa, those who support Africa. So we're super excited to see, Del York in particular has been building capacity for creatives for over a decade. So this is just an extension of what we're hoping to continue to build that talent and see a pipeline that will continue to touch the world, do different things as actresses, as filmmakers, and really continue to take over the production space.
Thanks. And I mean, I think creativity, obviously, you said that it's a home for creatives, right? And I think at the center of that is definitely digital communication, digital engagement. So Fego, I'd really like you to just dive deep in a lot of the I guess, wins from a digital perspective that Nigeria can boast about that I think have really helped boost the industry?
So for me, I think the first one is, for me, one thing that has helped the film industry is the streaming platform. And it kind of makes everything easy, unlike what we had before where every single thing is just tied to cinema. Cinema is fantastic, but streaming platform actually has helped to boost the income, the revenue generation, also helps to export some of our content outside of Nigeria. No, I met someone yesterday and they were telling me about the platform they built for Yoruba films, and I was excited about it because that also gives us an opportunity, because for them their market is the diaspora, so that gives us an opportunity to showcase the Yoruba culture. So I think in my own opinion, I think digital has really helped us to really push our content outside of Nigeria, and also created more revenue streaming platform, revenue opportunities for filmmakers to really generate more. And let me go back to what I said earlier with the bank funding. And I think the lady from Lagos State said it was just to correct what he said. So it's an investment, not a loan. Yeah, it's an investment, and there's a sharing formula. One of the things that has made that conversation easy is because of the streaming platform. Now you know that you have off-takers for whatever content you produce. It makes it easy for the financial institutions to have a bit of assurance that when they invest their money, they're going to get their money back, because you have off-takers to take this film and push out the revenue. Thank you.
And I mean, even and I completely agree with you with the streaming platforms, but there obviously are conversations around the rights issues associated with streaming platforms, right, that we can't run away from. Do you think it's a catch-22, or do you think it's a case of focusing what the Nigerian industry needs more now, and then building your way around those legal parameters going forward?
I'll throw that question to Bababa. So the ministry have all this conversation. So Bababa, over to you.
You're putting me on the spot. Okay, I think first and foremost, right, the key thing is you have to have different avenues for filmmakers to monetize. So, and I think, this is being reinforced even more so now as, the streaming wars are sort of dying down and everybody's recalibrating. But from cinematic exhibition all the way to the various forms of monetizations and the waterfall that goes after that, it's key that we sort of try and preserve it as much as possible and enable more access. And generally, there needs to be an expansion of all of them for us. Now, as regards streaming, of course, I like to look at technology as an enabler. It doesn't necessarily fundamentally change things. It might change the way we go about certain things, but what we have to look at is it's constantly evolving. And so we always have to evolve how we approach it and how we look at it and what we think about it. So there's a lot of conversations going on different sides of the Atlantic and the global south and north about how streaming affects rights holders. So you see the deal Netflix just did with the Actors Guild in the UK, and that's like novel because now they're giving royalties to the actors, but then that's affecting the pay because they're downscaling the pay. So even they are changing their model. So I think it's something that we all just have to keep on engaging with each other and tweaking it to make sure that, one, it benefits the industry, the practitioners, two, it benefits the public, and three, the platforms and the businesses benefit. So I feel that there's a mutually beneficial solution that's there, but it's key to always have that conversation. You can never let people just run around wild.
Vicentia, I hope you're still with us. I just don't see her logged in. Is she still with us from the AU? Okay, cool. All right. I'd then like us to go back to, you were talking now about the ability of the streamers, right, to give filmmakers an opportunity to really produce, right, and produce obviously for different types of audiences and to let their products be seen in more than one region. From a tourism perspective, how do you think Nigerian film were ready before even streamers came into the picture? What has that impact of film in Nigeria? What has the impact been on tourism?
Well, it has exported our culture. And it's very, very important we talk about that, because our music used to be residual in Nigeria. And all of a sudden, it has become global. So it has taken what we used to own, Afrobeat, what we used to own, it has made it a global industry and a global market product. And I see film as taking that same perspective. Film has actually even done more, because I, for instance, used to live in the US, and the only thing that connected us with home at that time was film, which we actually took film into our bedrooms. And we would watch the emerging trends in fashion, the emerging trends in music, the emerging trends in culture, right from our bedrooms or our living rooms in the United States, and I know it happens all over the world as well. So for tourism, I think it has been a great export of our culture. And it's something that we really need to, like he says, the legalities of rights, how does it benefit the filmmakers? How does it also benefit us as a country? Does it take revenue out of our country, or does it bring revenue back to the filmmakers? We really need to work on the aggregate of how it will benefit us in the long run as a total group, as the entire value chain. We spoke about film yesterday, and we say that cinema creates a whole totally different experience. And once you get to the cinema, it's different from watching from your bedroom, or it's different from watching from the cinema space. So, but for tourism, I think it has really helped us in exporting our culture. And people who have not been to our country know what we have to offer, know what we're about, know what we eat. I remember last year or the year before, there was a fufu contest all over the world. A few years back, there was also the jollof rice contest. My jollof rice is better than your jollof rice. It was a competition between Ghana and Nigeria, leaving Senegal behind, because Senegal also is a jollof rice country. So the same way we've done so well with our music, I think the streaming system and the export of our film into other countries through streaming and through videos has actually helped our tourism. It's shown the world the kind of people we are, what we do, especially with fashion as well. It's exported a lot of our fashion, and I think that we're in a good place because of what we have exported to the rest of the world, tourism-wise. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Vicencia, what Toke is touching on is kind of, I think, falls quite nicely into having the type of continent where intra-Africa trade is of ease, right? And I know that there's quite a lot of work that's been done by the AU. There's still some work that needs to be done. But can you kind of touch on the work that has been done, particularly in the context towards the creative sector, so that, it's just in the context of really creating more ease in terms of intra-Africa trade, so that all of these type of touch points, tourism, all of that stuff, can really, really enable better kind of economic, better economic energy on the continent.
So, Big Brother, I think that question would be for you.
Okay.
Does Vicente, does she not?
Vicente, yeah.
Oh, ha.
Yes,
Okay,
for Vicente.
Yeah. Can you hear us? There she is. So just
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Internet is not that stable. I would say that African Union from the Addis Ababa headquarters and the Division of Culture has been mainly on creating policies. And one of the policies is Culture and Creative Plan of Action on Culture and Creative Industries, which is also trying to let member states that they should invest on culture and creative industries, including the film industry. And to the issue of AFCTA, we are pushing to have a common film market from Africa so that we can be able to support not the giant filmmakers because already they have access to the market, but the upcoming, because we believe that if we have a common space to exchange the content and market the content, we're in a good position to get better prices than as individual filmmakers who are upcoming in the industry. So one of the mandates of the African Audiovisual Cinema Commission is to encourage the establishment of appropriate structures at the national and regional level. We have to take into consideration one of the biggest challenges of film business is the same as other businesses, where we have over-regulations in some member states, over taxation in member states, and also over censorship, we would say. So this kind of a framework is also detrimental to the marketing and the profitability of the productions as well, because you find in some member states, we have countries where the film industry is taxed maybe 5 times on the same product. So those are the issues which I think we also need to take into consideration. And this is also the challenge whereby we are now getting into the facilities, the loan facilities for the film industry. As a colleague has spoken, loan facilities is becoming a challenging factor, and we are yet to get experiences from member states which it has worked better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And also for just highlighting the AU's focus on development. And I'd just like to come back to you, Malik, in terms of the studio and the vision around the skills development. Can you just kind of touch on that?
Yeah, I think honestly, the reason why Lagos State has been so supportive of this initiative is because they really want to see creatives thrive, right? And so when we think about capacity building and skill set, hoping that continuously, when you look at the creative industry, particularly in Nigeria, and how much of jobs come out of the creative industry, the importance of honing these skills is incredibly important. So when we're looking at what Kibulania is going to be, the trajectory of where we're going, we're hoping that we'll continue to hone these skills. We continue to take the talent that has already been within Nollywood, within the creative industry, as well as other globally trained, to come and teach these students, because we understand that that's where the future is. So we're really excited. And when we look at what these skills, when you continue to hone on the skills that are being built, we know that there's going to be greater productions that are going to come forth from it, because it's not about just training to be good in Nigeria or training to be good in Africa. It's about training to be good all over the world. And that's what we're going to see in this development.
Thank you. I would like to open up to the audience in case there are any questions in the audience. I see one here, two.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Beaufort. I'm a producer from California, Hollywood. And this is my co-producers, Jenny Aitintai. So we are very honored to be here to be part of the Nigerian discussion group. And congratulations to your country for being the #1 volume in making films, yes?
Thank you.
Yes, we would love to work with you. Now, you were mentioning about the tax credit, so I wanted to drill more into that. So does the AU have a united system to allocate the tax credit, and then what is the percentage of that?
Okay, so the African Union doesn't have a unified scheme for the tax credit. So the individual countries have their own schemes, just like everywhere else. So, I mean, similar with Europe, where France has it, the UK's is different. So it depends on the specific country. So it varies from 20 to 40%, depending on where you go. So as regards Nigeria, so it's being developed. We would launch everything by the end of next year, start of next year. But it's not in place right now, but it's what we're putting in place. So, I mean, it's a new government. We've been in less than a year. So, like I said, we're going back foundational and what are the gaps that exist and what can we bring to the table that wasn't there before. So obviously, this is a big demand from local filmmakers and global filmmakers looking to collaborate, and just like yourself. So, yeah.
We'd love to work with you, so let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. If we can just keep them short and sweet.
Thank you very much. My name is Lai Mohammed. I was Minister of Information and Culture in Nigeria for 8 years until May last year. And I want to say that there is need for more coordination between the states and the federal. I think we are talking to ourselves, we are not talking to ourselves. And there's so much that the federal government has done in the area of providing not just infrastructure, but regulation and legislation that will move this industry forward. I will start with 1992 when the NBC, that's the National Broadcasting Commission, came to be. Many of you don't remember that up to 1992, there was only one television station in Nigeria, only one radio station in Nigeria. Today we have about 700 of such. And this is because the federal government took it on its, took it as a serious, business to ensure that it diversifies the economy in that respect. Two, the NBC regularly does what we call amendments to its code. These codes are actually what we should all look into, both state and also the private sector. For instance, I don't know how many of us are aware that under the Nigerian Broadcasting Code today, 75% of all contents are supposed to be local. I don't know how many of us today sitting here understand the fact that the federal government, through its code, has striven to break the monopoly of multinationals in the area of either sports rights or in the area of wholesale. And the federal government put into place certain regulations that will help the industry, because what we find now is that the producers can't even pay their rent. They can't even pay their hospital bills. Whereas the networks, rather the advertisers, smile to the bank. There's this provision, I want you to look at that. There's a provision in the code today that if you owe one particular agency, you owe everybody, and then you are nobody is going to air your program. So I think there's need to study broadcasting. It's done a lot to actually bring a better economy into the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I just had one question there, and the last one, that gentleman there. It's the young lady there and the gentleman there. Then we'll see if we have questions.
So my question is for Baba. I was just wondering, you were talking about some of the tax incentives and some countries. Can you just rename them? I might have missed them.
I'm not here to advertise other countries. If you Google it, you find. I'll tell you later.
Thank you.
Okay, just.
No, for other countries. That's why I said we're not here to market other countries.
Yeah, just one. We're running out of time, colleagues.
Thank you. Hello, great panel. Thank you. My name is Armin Schneider. I'm running a talent foundation in Germany. And I work very closely with one of the leading film schools in Germany, and they have an international class, and every year there are also 2 or 3 students from Nigeria. So we are cooperating with them, and when they're going back, they're trying to start to get their films in place. But we're trying to support them from our side, also financially. But what are you doing for emerging talents, like the talents that are being educated in Germany, going back to their home country in Nigeria? What are you doing there? And if you want to speak to me about that, I'm still be very happy if there's anybody from Nigeria who I can have a conversation about that afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, can I suggest that you address the panel after we close? I'm just wary of the time because you had offered that you had offered yourself forward. Okay, I had a question there in the corner and a lady here, but we're out of time. Being told we're out of time. We're out of time. Okay, I'm being shut down. Thank you so much, everybody. But please, you can engage with the panel afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.